everyone to our As the Expert conversation. We are so glad that you are here with us today. And if you're listening in, if it's another day and time, just thank you for joining us. I know you are going to really appreciate today's conversation. We get to talk to Paul Curtis, and he's going to be sharing with us about how to deal with chronic pain. And I'm wondering, from those who are here, you can either put in the chat, or if you want to share out loud, like how many of you have dealt with chronic pain or experienced it, maybe currently, or maybe you've helped someone with chronic pain. If you're just listening in, maybe just reflect on that yourself, if maybe you are one of those people. Yeah, it does. It comes up a lot. Actually, one statistic I read is that like 1 in every 3 to 4 people are dealing with chronic pain. So it impacts a lot of us. And Paul has helped hundreds of people escape the grip of pain and reclaim the kind of life they want to live. Paul is a certified pain management coach with Take Courage Coaching. He is also a nationally board certified health and wellness coach. He's a staff instructor and mentor at Take Courage Coaching. And this is actually how I met Paul. He was one of my instructors. And that's why I'm so thrilled to get to share his knowledge and his presence with you all today. He has actually been teaching there since 2015, and he has a pretty robust background in fitness too. A little bit about Paul is that he lives in Montana. He loves the outdoors, and he has a beautiful family, a wife, a son, and 2 Labradors. Paul, we are so glad you're here with us today.
Thanks, Natalie. I'm really honored to be here. This will be fun.
Yeah, I'm wondering, like we were kind of talking about how pain, it likely affects so many of us. I'm wondering what your personal story or experience with pain is.
So it started, I think my first introduction to it was back in 2005. My family was traveling through the Big Hole Valley here in Montana. And if you've ever been to the Big Hole Valley, it's aptly named. It's a very remote part of the state. And we were traveling in separate vehicles. So I was in a vehicle with my dad and my sister, and my mom and my brother were behind us in a separate vehicle. And my mom dozed off at the wheel and had a really violent car wreck that we were all there for. We were kind of the first responders to it, obviously. And fortunately, everybody lived. There's a really happy ending to the story. But at the time, it was really, kind of that traumatic event that always like sticks in your mind. And my mom suffered a C4 burst fracture in her vertebrae, and is an incomplete quadriplegic, which means she has movement, but has some impairment that, her spinal cord was damaged but not severed, luckily. And she developed chronic pain from the neck down as a result of that injury. So I was 17 at the time. So that was kind of an experience that I learned a lot from, just in seeing her go through the struggles of learning to live with pain. And what a lot of people, I think, experience, which is going through different treatments that maybe work, maybe don't. And I saw her just struggle with, trying a lot of medications and trying a lot of treatments, and nothing really worked to help her live the life that she wanted. She's a very active person that loves, just loves, being active, being really involved in life. And she was able to, through going through a pain program, was able to, learn some strategies for managing pain and some ways to kind of take control back of her life. And so I was really inspired by that at kind of a young age. So it really inspired me to help other people, because I'd seen her just go through this transformation. And I thought it's so powerful to see people go through a transformation that's difficult, that's challenging, and to come out almost better than they were before, which is, kind of her case. She, had limitations, but, kind of had a knowledge to help other people through this. And so, so she started this company called Take Courage Coaching, I think in 2009, once she kind of had things figured out. And so I got inspired to, like I said, help other people, and I ended up working at the program that she went through. It's a program in California called the HELP program. And through that, I've just been able to, over time learn how to help people become empowered. And that's not really through my expertise necessarily, but it's more through just helping people uncover their power, like their inner ability to make changes in their life. And so when I learned coaching, that really changed things. And I started coaching for Take Courage Coaching. And just, I guess as a whole, it's really helped me just enable others to like be in the driver's seat with their pain, and not to be dependent on someone else to fix it, but realizing they have the power to make a real lasting change in their own life.
Gosh, what a perfect example of how to transform pain. It sounds like your mom really went through that whole process of transformation. I'm sure it wasn't easy, but through that, sounds like she found a sense of purposefulness in it. And even you.
Yeah, it's amazing how something that is kind of scary and is the unknown can become kind of a building point for building purpose and meaning in life through something that initially was really a terrible thing. So
yeah, it makes me think that for some people that experience something traumatic, some kind of traumatic accident like that, or maybe they've got extreme pain from a surgery or something, that it can be really difficult to imagine how life can be different, how they could have a sense of purpose in their life after all this, or with dealing with the pain. How do you help your clients to have that sense of vision, or to find a vision?
I love that question. Because it really is about almost, we can call it imagination. It's something that we use a lot when we're little kids.
Mhm.
And so I try to bring that playfulness into the coaching relationship, where we can dream a little bit. We can imagine, like, what do we want life to be like? And I think something like pain can, or any kind of traumatic injury or drastic, when life changes in a big way, we can forget what's really possible for us. And so I think as a coach, like my goal is always to just help people uncover what's possible for them. So we form a vision of like what their ideal life looks like. If you could kind of wave a magic wand, what would life look like for you? And I think through that gives us the inspiration to do something different. Whereas, I think if we don't do that, we get, it gets intimidating. Change is hard enough, but if we have a path towards kind of that ideal life that we know we really want, and we can pursue that dream, then it makes the steps to get there a little bit easier and more manageable. So that's where we start, just dreaming a little bit, using our imagination to form what we think the ideal life for us is, and then we have a direction to head in.
That's one of my favorite questions, is if you had if you could wave your magic wand, what would you wish for? And yeah, to support people in connecting back to that imagination. Like you said, oftentimes we leave it behind when we move out of the childhood stage, but it sounds like it can be a big power source for us, even as adults and older adults.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's something we need to do every once in a while, just tap into our inner child. I think we all have that. Sometimes it's easy to lose it. Like, life gets pretty serious when you become an adult, right? You got all these bills to pay and responsibilities, and and stressors and kind of the what ifs. And there's something about using our imagination that and just being playful and creative that kind of frees our mind up to be who we truly are. And I think by connecting with that inner child, we, just tap into who we really are in a profound way.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, it's kind of supporting that sense of joy, even in the challenge, that there's still joy to be found there. And that can actually give us strength through it.
Absolutely.
So, something that I've noticed, even myself, and of course, other people, I'm sure experience this, that when we're feeling pain or something goes wrong, we immediately, our first instinct is to go to see the doctor to get this fixed, to get this resolved. And of course, that the physical approach to pain is definitely for real, but I'm wondering, like, are there more elements involved in pain, and what is your approach, or take courage's approach to dealing with pain?
Oh man, it's a great question. I've kind of shifted my view in this over the past few years. I think our initial response when we feel pain is, who's going to fix this for me? Who's going to, figure this out? And I think there are times when, it's great to go to a specialist or a doctor, and they can really, maybe put you on a good path. But I think more than that, if we're really in tune and kind of using our intuition when it comes to pain, pain is a teacher. Pain is something that's there to alert us to when something's wrong. And I think that shift in paradigm and understanding that it's there for a reason, and maybe there's something that we need to pay attention to. So I think with kind of our typical model, like what we think of, in when it comes to chronic pain, is like I need to go to someone to help me fix this. And I really appreciate when people, also look within, like use this as a teaching moment. Why is my alarm system going off here? And I think when we can do that, we can learn more about ourselves and maybe get to the root cause of what's actually going on underneath. And I think as coaches, we can help people do that to really uncover, like, what am I missing in life? Do I need more sleep? Do I need more movement? Do I need to take a look at my diet, and maybe eat different foods? So that's been I think a helpful shift for a lot of people, is realizing that, we can learn something from pain. Doesn't mean it's a good thing that we're hurting or that we're not feeling our best. But I think seeing it as a learning opportunity can be really empowering for people.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm hearing that your mom did from her accident, that I'm sure she went through a lot of emotions with that, but it sounds like she really got the perspective of what's the gift in this for me, and how can I share it with others. Yeah, even like on a personal, bringing it home personally, just that question you mentioned, like, what am I missing, or what do I need to look at?
Yeah, and it's a puzzle. Like it's a puzzle that we're trying to solve, and it doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. It'd be nice if it was
Yeah.
maybe like an easy, well, let's change one thing. And I think understanding that this might take some time is important for people, that, when there's multiple challenges, which, I find a lot of times with my clients that they're not sleeping well, that it's hard to move, right? I know I need to move, but man, it hurts to move. I think when there's multiple challenges like that, it's takes a little while to put the pieces together. And luckily, as coaches, we have time to spend with people. We can really dive into, like, what does need to change? What is holding you back from feeling your best and from really fulfilling that vision that you have for life.
kind of like coaching, there's a method for our madness, if you will. Like when we're asking these questions, like you said, we're supporting it through coaching and helping to uncover what might be the puzzle piece that will bring things together. And it's very personal, I would think. Like pain is so complicated, and it's also very personal and how it affects so many, like you're sharing so many aspects of life.
It is such an individual thing. And that's what's really enjoyable for me, is just connecting with the person. And I think, going back to what we were saying, oh, my dog's trying to get in here.
You're among dog lovers.
Part of this too.
Community loves dogs.
He busts in every once in a while. So I think, like what we were talking about with the medical model, it can be kind of a one size fits all approach. And what I love about coaching is that we get to connect with the individual, like connect with the person rather than the problem. And I think that's kind of the difference. A lot of times, and I had to learn this early on in my career, that I didn't have to be the person to solve the problem. I just had to connect with the person. And I think when when we're looking at the person and just treating them with unconditional love and regard and positive regard, right? It's amazing what happens. And I think that's the missing piece, is it's funny to say, but it's love. Like it's this unconditional positive regard for other people that is the big healer. And so I think understanding, like learning that was really helpful for me, learning that the power of just treating people as like as a powerful individual, like that they have what they need to make a change. And that I don't need to solve their problems. We don't need to necessarily look really hard at the problems, but we need to look at what this person has within them that can help them really make a change.
It sounds like you're talking about creating an environment, a space where the person can, like you said earlier, that true authentic person can come forward, that isn't feeling so stuck with all the gunk and the emotions that can come up from pain, like whether it's self-judgment or shame or whatever it might be, but just really creating that atmosphere of love where they can relax into and experience that healing.
Yeah. Exactly. And and I think so often, and this is true for people, whether they experience chronic pain or not, we're really good at seeing our flaws and just kind of beating ourselves up. And I think it starts with just self-love, like learning to see ourselves as whole and as powerful and as wise in what we're capable of. And I think when we do that, that momentum starts building, and people start to believe in themselves. To me, that's one of the most powerful parts of this, is just the belief in their own abilities.
Oh yeah, love it. Yeah, self-love. I mean, I know it might sound a little, what do they call it, a little hippie, but it really is the answer. It's kind of like the journey informing the destination. That's something Stacey and I in our coaching, we talk about a lot, especially with weight loss, but I'm seeing the relevance here too. Like how can a method of self-attack inform help you in getting that healing or achieving that weight loss? It just doesn't work. That momentum gets generated through the love, as you're saying. So yeah, you mentioned earlier about how when you're in pain, kind of the last thing you want to do is move your body. Like it can feel really uncomfortable. You don't want to move, but yet there's this idea we all hear that motion is lotion. Like what advice would you give to people who are in this predicament?
It's a hard place to be in. It's kind of this paradox of, I know I need to move, but man, it hurts so much. Like, how do you expect me to move if I'm hurting? And I think, one of the biggest tools that I work with people on using is patience and pacing, the 2 Ps.
Mm.
So I think and this goes back to like what we learn as little kids and we learn throughout our life, that when we're doing something physically active, we go until we get a response, right? Where our body says like, okay, it's time to stop. Like, my muscles are really burning, my lungs aren't keeping up with my activity, or I'm really sore from the workout from the day before, so I'm gonna take it easy today. And it's that pain teacher, right, that's taught us, hey, it's there's a limit that we need to stop at, right? And the same is true with touching the stove when we're little, and we get that that pain response. So I think we're really wired to go until something says to stop. And that's great for those that don't have chronic pain. For those that do, it can really get us into a bad place. We call it a pain flare, or the cycle of pain, right? So for somebody that has pain, let's say they get motivated to move and they go out and they do a long walk, or they do a workout, or they go on a maybe even go on a road trip or something like that, and they get into a pain flare, right? It was too much. So something that I teach people to do is to learn to go from pain-based pacing, which is what we do our whole life, where we go until like something tells us to stop, to what I call time-based pacing. And that is an example of that would be like, if I know that doing dishes for 12 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, flares my pain up, that I'll only go to 8, or 10, and I'll stop before that pain signal starts to tell me to stop. And so by doing that, we're able to stay out of the pain flare. And when we stay out of a pain flare, I think it allows us to build some momentum. So if I'm able to do dishes for 8 minutes and then not get into this cycle of pain, it means that the next time I can maybe go to 9 minutes, 10 minutes. And I think, over time, just slowly building and kind of paying attention to how much time I tolerate, rather than paying attention to the sensation. Because by the time the sensation is there telling you to stop, it's too late, and you're already in a pain flare that's going to keep you in bed for a couple days. So that's one strategy that a lot of folks get quite a bit out of.
Yeah, I love that. Like, you've got this pain-based strategy that served us for a long time, most of our life. So trying this other strategy of it being more time-based, to not just go based on, oh yeah, you're definitely at your threshold to where you can't move the next day or week. Yeah, that sounds like a really smart way forward with that. Yeah. Anything else along those lines that you can support people that are listening in with the pain and the physical movement? Like, so often, I guess what I'm thinking of is people that I coach that it can feel intimidating to think of, oh, exercise, like that word. They don't even like the word. Like, we got to call it something like joyful movement or dancing. Anything else that you can think of from that you've experienced in coaching that supports people in this area?
Well, it's exactly what you do, Natalie. Like, I love your YouTube channel, because you just embody that like joyful movement, and you make it fun, and I think that's so key for people, is to like not feel like you have to go slog out a long walk on the treadmill, or that you have to do what is maybe a traditional workout, but find creative ways to do it. And that's one thing I really love doing with people, is just discovering more creative ways to move. So I would say, just think about like what you really love doing. And it can be as simple as, I'll give an example here of a client. She had some pecan trees in her yard. And one of her favorite things to do, and she was really limited physically in what she could do, but she loved going out. And once the pecans had fallen on the ground, she'd go out there and pick them up. And it was she called it her pecan therapy. So it was something for her that, got her outdoors, got her involved in something that, that engaged her brain as well as her body. And I think when we can do that, where we're having fun, whether it's dancing or, picking fruit or picking nuts off the ground, or taking our dogs for a walk, and just being engaged with the dogs, or something that keeps the brain active. It goes from being like this, this exercise routine that's kind of a scary or intimidating thing, to something that's like engaging, where I can get my brain involved in this. I can really get immersed in the moment of it, rather than, I think when we're, maybe going through a traditional workout, sometimes it's really body focused, right? We're really focused on, oh man, my back is really hurting during this, or, this part of my body just isn't feeling really well. So I think getting the brain involved in it in one way or another is pretty important.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It almost sounds like this could be a way to rewire the brain if you're doing something that really engages your brain and takes you out of maybe the pain feeling, and gets you more into just the moment, feeling good. That could have that rewiring effect. Is that kind of what is happening from your perspective as a pain coach there?
Absolutely. And, I think everything we do, a lot of people ask me, like, how do I rewire my brain? And I think it really comes down to just engaging in especially in the natural world. I feel like when people get outside in nature, it takes them back to something powerful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think rewiring our brain, we think of that as like a mental thing, like I have to sit down and do some like mental exercises, or, work with my thoughts. And I think the body needs to be part of that too, a lot of times. And I think it works better when the mind and body are working together. So.
Yeah, like it could be, like you said, going out in nature, that's so stimulating for our brain, and it likely can just make you feel better. So the more, what is that saying I learned in Take Courage coaching? Nerves that fire together, wire together.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. So do more of from what I'm hearing, is do more of those things that make you feel good. That's.
And yeah, and neuroplasticity has so much to do with thought patterns. So if you're in an environment that is kind of crummy, for lack of a better term, like if you're in an environment that you hate, right? You're stuck indoors all day, or you're trying to think of another example, but like, being inside all day, being stuck in front of a screen, that kind of thing can really, I think, just inhibit your ability to make changes in the brain. And so, yeah, I think engaging in things that take you out of that like allow you to engage with things that you love, that are fun, makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're, like you said earlier, creating this environment of the feeling environment, of feeling love, of feeling self-acceptance, and also our external environment is equally important with rewiring the brain to manage pain, like those things that make you feel good, and yeah, just stimulating and helping you. I would think that you want to disconnect with your body when you're in pain, but what I'm hearing is there is some connection that is a key to moving forward.
Yeah, and I think going back to pain being the teacher, a lot of times you learn things that, you know, maybe I need to strengthen this part of my body a little more. I need to give this a little bit of love. You know, maybe I need to stretch this part of my body a little bit more. Or, yeah, it can be a scary thing to check in with that, you know, and I think we, maybe sometimes we assume that the way that we rewire and the way that we reduce our pain is by ignoring it, you know, not paying attention to it. And I think there's something to that, right? Where we don't want to be just focusing on what's miserable and what hurts all the time, because that will create, you know, pathways in the brain. That repetition will create that. But there is a time, I think there is a time and a place to just check in with our body, you know, and just notice things about it without judgment. And so that's something I help people navigate in the coaching is, you know, what do you feel like you need to pay attention to, and what isn't serving you? You know, what thoughts or what attention isn't serving you in this way?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. A question that came to mind for me when you were sharing that is, what needs love right now? Like, what part of
Mhm.
me needs that love? Yeah, I appreciate those really good questions to check in with yourself, in a way that serves us. I want to be sure to ask you about opioids, because I know this topic has a lot of stigma and even some shame attached to it. So I would really, and I think our audience would love to hear your take on this.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Um, and so I think it's so important, when it comes to opioids to realize that, um, and when I'm working with people, that's usually the first tool they've been given, right, is opioids, and maybe the only tool they've been given. And I think it's so important to you know, approach this with non-judgment, realizing that this is where people are starting. That you know, this is a tool that, for now, works for them, maybe in some ways. You know, obviously, we know there's some downsides to taking opioids, and I think anybody that's taken them knows there's you know, there's pros and cons to it. And so, you know, if you're listening to this and you know, you are taking opioids for pain, I want you to know that there's, you know, there's no shame in that. There's no reason to be ashamed of that. That's kind of um, you know, our system, the medical system. That's the first thing they give you. And I think it can be really scary, you know, thinking about doing life without opioids. Like this is my tool. This is the thing that I know how to use. And something that I really try to help people cover is, um, you know, building up a toolkit for pain, um, to where, you know, maybe we can build enough confidence in our ability to manage pain where, someday we might be ready to let go of the opioids and to lean on some other skills. But that it's okay, you know, if you continue using opioids, that's fine as well. So um, I think it really starts with just meeting people where they are, realizing that, you know, um, you know, when it comes to different medications, like there's a lot of times that's the spark people need. Like it gives them a little bit of a buffer zone to where they can gain some confidence in their ability to manage pain. And I think over time, you know, as we work with people, they begin to believe that, and realize that they're capable of managing pain, maybe without opioids. Maybe they've gotten their sleep figured out and gotten their exercise, you know, their movement patterns figured out in a way that help them to cope with pain. But I think for the individual, it's really important to realize that everybody does this at their own pace and in their own way. So some people can feel a lot of pressure to get off of opioids, and I have clients that have, you know, have used them for 2 or 3 years beyond our coaching, and have called me up, you know, or let me know that, you know, hey, I finally was able to get over my opioids and to, you know, trust the toolkit that I have in place.
Mhm.
So for those listening, like I want you to know that, that it is possible, you know, it is possible to manage pain without opioids. And But it needs to be on your terms and not someone else's. And I think that's the challenge a lot of times, that, maybe your doctor wants you off of your opioids, or your loved ones don't want you taking them. And I think it needs to be on your terms and in your way that you move on to other tools. So
I so appreciate how you're really fostering that sense of autonomy, and there's an honoring of our own sovereignty in what I hear you saying, that it needs to be on your terms. And because that's part of the confidence boosting and the self-efficacy to figuring out the journey that you're on and what's going to best support you. I just have one question. I definitely want to open it up for other people, but you mentioned developing a toolkit for pain. And I'm wondering if there were like 2 or 3 things that you would say, definitely have this in your toolkit. What would that be for people?
I think the number one is, this is where I start with everybody, is just learning to breathe properly. And, chronic pain kind of creates this breathing pattern that isn't ideal, right? So when we're stressed, when we're in this, state of fight or flight, we tend to breathe with our chest, breathe with our neck, and breathe shallow. And I think understanding not only our breathing patterns, but just how the nervous system works is really important. So realizing that there's 2 branches to our nervous system. There's our fight or flight response, which is the Stacey earlier mentioned, grizzly bears where she lives, right? So just thinking about like coming face to face with a grizzly bear puts us in fight or flight, right? We tense up, our breathing gets shallow, our heart rate goes up, we get tunnel vision, where our focus gets narrower, and our digestion stops, right? Our internal organs actually go into a pause mode when we're in fight or flight. And so the functions of the body, from our breathing to our digestion to our mental focus, all goes on pause to deal with that problem. And that's useful, right? It's there for a reason. It's there for that confrontation with the grizzly bear that's going to help us run away or defend ourselves or whatever we need to do. But on a day-to-day basis, that's not a very fun place to be, right? Having our bodily functions kind of put on pause. So something I really try to help people understand is just how to optimize our nervous system. And that starts with the breathing. So breathing is just that one way to kind of switch from fight or flight, which is where most people in chronic pain live, right? This is in this constant state of fight or flight, to the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. And when we can do that, our breathing patterns normalize. We feel a state of calm. Our brain can learn better. Our memory's better. Our internal organs function properly. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's
so good.
Yeah.
Well, I could listen to you go. I could just listen to you for a long time and talk about this. So good. Actually, my husband was talking to me the other night because he deals with chronic pain. He rides motocross. He has into motocross. So of course he's had several accidents, and his wrist, the nerves in his wrist got messed up in an accident, and he has nerve pain. So that was one of his questions, was what is the best way to breathe? And I heard somewhere that nasal breathing is ideal. What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, and that's a great point you bring up. You think about the way that we breathe when we're stressed out. We're doing a lot of mouth breathing and shallow chest, and nose breathing. And I'm not like the world's foremost expert on exactly how this functions, but what we need is a good ratio of carbon dioxide to oxygen as we're breathing. And nasal breathing does that, right? It creates the right environment for that exchange of gases in our system. So, so yeah, it's something to think about. You know, a lot of people don't realize that they're maybe breathing with their mouth, but that's a natural response when we're stressed out and we're going into fight or flight mode, is to breathe through our mouth. And so I think just by you know, focusing on nasal breathing, and there's some fun tricks you can do. There's some fun exercises you can do. Are you familiar with single nostril breathing or alternate nostril breathing?
I've heard about it, but yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, we can even practice it a little bit together if you guys want. It's a fun trick just to kind of tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest. And I like doing like a hang loose signal to start. And so you're gonna use your thumb to block this nostril, and you're gonna use your pinky to block this one. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some people like going in through one, you know, in through one nostril, out through the other, in through this nostril, out through the other. So we can practice that a little bit together here. So just in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. And you know, if somebody walks in while you're doing that, they might think you're a little goofy. But it's a fun, I think it's just a fun way to kind of tap into that parasympathetic response. Do you notice anything different while doing that?
Yeah, anyone here, how are you feeling right now? Stacey says she's feeling calmer. Yeah, I definitely feel more present, Paul.
Yeah, more relaxed.
Just a way to slow things down a little bit. And pain is chaos, right? Pain speeds things up, and that stress response, things feel like they've kind of sped up on us, and we have a hard time keeping up. And so sometimes just taking a minute and doing some deep breaths, doing some, you know, even single nostril breathing, or there's a lot of different techniques that just help us tap into that rest and digest response that can calm the nervous system. And when the nervous system is calm, we sleep better. We're less focused on pain. We're less focused on tension. And it actually decreases tension in the body when we do that. So.
Oh gosh, I so appreciate you taking a moment to do that exercise with us and really get it anchored in our bodies. Like you were saying earlier, that's such a good tool in our toolkit there. I would love to take this opportunity for anyone that's here. If you would prefer to share your questions in the chat, please feel free to do that. And Stacey will get those and read them off for us. So while we're waiting for the few that we do have joining us to share any questions, you can unmute yourself too. So I'll just give us a few seconds to give space for that.
I do also have a question myself, just talking to a friend yesterday who's dealing with some pain. He's a climber and he is a carpenter, so he's very physical with his work. And he's been seeing a doctor for pain. And he was just having a very frustrating experience because his doctor has been giving him injections. And he was trying to ask more about, like, you know, why, like, what are these injections for? You know, how is this going to help me long term? And the doctor was kind of, first of all, shutting him down, saying he was like too busy for that conversation. And the little nugget that he got was basically that he was numbing the nerves, which sounds like you're just numbing the pain signal, but you're not getting to the root cause. And then he asked the doctor if there was anyone else he could refer him to. He mentioned an osteopath, and the doctor said he'd be wasting his time with that. Do you have any advice for people who may be coming up against this in the conventional healthcare system, where they're not getting that sort of holistic approach and they don't know where else to turn because, the doctor's where they're used to going?
Mhm. It's a great question. I see that all the time. And, unfortunately, we're in kind of our medical system is in kind of a place of direction, right? There's a big directive approach to everything that is done. And so I would really encourage people to really trust your intuition and trust your ability to be the expert on your pain.
Mm.
So if something doesn't feel right about going into a surgery or doing a treatment, trust that intuition, trust that you know what's best for you. And I see so many times when people feel like, well, the doctor is the big expert on this and they're going to tell me exactly what I need to do.
Mm.
I think it's, it can be kind of a trap where we maybe stop believing in our ability to solve this problem on our own or with the help of someone else, right? So I would really encourage people to, and this is something that I try to do in my coaching, is really empower them to be experts on their own pain. And I'm not the expert on it, right? I don't live in their body. I don't experience what they experience. They do. And I think when we can start seeing ourselves as the expert on our own health conditions, and we're paying attention, right? We're letting pain be the teacher that teaches us something. And we listen to that, we trust it. I think we can find the solutions to that. So I know it's kind of a broad answer because it varies so much for each person, but in exploring more, I think we can uncover all kinds of things that, that might surprise us. That, and I didn't realize that how impactful stretching was until I started experimenting with it a little bit. I think it's so much about personal trial and error and just paying attention.
No, I really love that answer because that kind of came up. He mentioned there were parts where it's like, yeah, definitely sort of trusting your intuition, because he said like he felt that the pain was a sign that he needed to rest more and that he pushes himself too much and he never takes downtime. So right there is like, yes, it like pain is the teacher, and a big teacher of trusting your intuition, I think, is a key lesson for probably many people. But like you said, it's going to look different for everyone.
Absolutely.
We did have a question that came in on sleep, Paul. So are there tips and techniques for getting a good night's sleep, even when you are in pain or have an injury that makes sleeping difficult?
Yeah, I love that question. I think sleep is the key for so many things. And when we're not sleeping well, talking about the nervous system again, we our nervous system gets ramped up and we get into this cycle of stress and tension and pain, and negative thinking, right? I know I'm pretty cranky when I'm sleep deprived, as we all are, right? So I think the biggest key to sleep, and let me back up. I think there's two different things that tend to come up with my clients when it comes to sleep. One is having trouble falling asleep, getting to the end of the day and maybe, sleeping during the day and having a hard time sleeping at night, getting out of that system, or that cycle rather, of, just having a hard time sleeping at night. So I sleep all day and everything's out of whack. And I think the most powerful thing to reset that, actually there's two things. One is sunlight. So I really encourage people to start your day and end your day with some exposure to the sun. And that doesn't mean we're outside getting sunburned. But we're having a healthy interaction with the rhythm of the sun and the rhythm of the earth and how it interacts with the sun, right? So this means we maybe start our day with some sunlight, upon waking, and that regulates our melatonin. So we have this sleep hormone, melatonin, that you can supplement. But I think the best way to supplement it is to expose ourselves to some sunlight, let the sun hit the corners of your eyes in the morning. And that helps burn off melatonin, give us energy during the day. And then ending our day with the same thing, maybe even watching the sun go down. And, obviously not looking directly at the sun. We want to stay away from that, but just being, kind of being more connected with that rhythm. And I think we spend so much time indoors that a lot of times we don't see the sun come up, we don't see the sun go down, and it really affects our sleep. And another thing I would say, that once the sun goes down, try to keep your house as dark as possible. Obviously, we don't want to be tripping around in the dark, but we a lot of us, and I'm guilty of this too. We're on our phones at night. We watch TV. We have our fluorescent lights on. So I think just doing what we can to be in rhythm with the rising and setting of the sun helps people kind of get out of that rhythm, out of that habit or that pattern of not being able to go to sleep at night and then being tired and having to sleep during the day. The other thing that I think helps reset that is movement. So I love just like trying to combine movement and exposure to sunlight in the morning. So maybe even something simple like a walk early in the morning, and maybe ending the day on the same note. Just some movement that helps regulate that. So that's the first challenge, which is kind of being out of sync with going to bed. The other thing that's really common, especially for people with chronic pain, is waking up during the night and having a pain flare during the middle of the night and having it wake you up, and then the nervous system's ramped up and it's hard to get back to sleep. And so for that I would say, when you wake up and you're having that, if you don't go back to sleep within the first 10 minutes or so, something I really encourage people to do is get up and do something. Kind of do your nighttime routine again, maybe. So for some people, they like reading before bed. So get up and read the most boring book you can find. I've made the mistake before, reading something really fascinating that really gets me stimulated, and that can get you ramped up. Another thing that people do, and I'm guilty of this too, is getting on their phone. I'm not going back to sleep, so I'm just gonna scroll social media or whatever, watch videos. And that exposure to light, resets your melatonin. It burns off your melatonin, makes it harder to sleep. So but encourage people to get up, move around. One thing I really love personally is, and this is, this involves your phone. So I have to use some self-control to not look at the light too much, but there's a lot of really good sleep meditations on YouTube, or, I know you guys have an app. Maybe there's some stuff available on there for sleep as well, but I really like a channel called The Honest Guys. And they do a lot of sleep meditations that I just turn on that kind of lull you to sleep. So those are a couple strategies for falling asleep. Again, once you've woken up in the middle of the night. But yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Paul. I'm sure I could ask you more questions, but gosh, this has been so good. You've given us so many good nuggets of wisdom and tools that we can I can see this really, people being able to put it immediately into action, like the nasal breathing with what did you call this? The AOK.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even these like simple things we can do to support our sleep, and just reminders again, like we all know that we have this inner wisdom within us, and I guess we just dismiss it. And what my takeaway from today is that to really honor that, and that can kind of inform your trial and error journey with figuring out what tools are going to best support you with managing your pain. Stacey, is there anything you would share that your takeaway from today?
I loved that practical exercise, because I'm all about how do we make this practical for for people. And I felt that in my nervous system, the calm down. And again, the biggest takeaway, trusting your body, like listening to those signals that pain is a teacher and that there's a reason it's there. And if you get stuck in your head about like, why me? Like, why am I in this pain? And rather just be reflective about, okay, what is this teaching me? Like, why is this in my life and what can I learn from it? It's a big perspective shift for people. So thank you.
Yeah. Paul, I would love to hear, like, do you have any closing thoughts or words of wisdom for our community? And also coupling that with, do you have any offerings or things that Take Courage Coaching or you are providing currently?
Yeah, I would really encourage people just to, like has already been stated, just trust your intuition. If something feels off, don't go into it, especially when it comes to medical procedures or medications that just don't work right for you. If something feels off, it probably is. And I really want to encourage people to just believe in yourself, believe in your ability to get better. And it's amazing what happens with just that little bit of hope that things can change for you, and that optimism. It's one of the most powerful things in the world. And I think when you couple that with loving yourself, like just, learning to see the good in you, that tends to take over, right? That'll take over your brain pathways, your movement patterns even. And I think when we do that, it just leads to a better life. And that's really what we're after. I think when we're going towards what we know we need in life, then pain goes off to the side, right? It might still be part of your life. You might still experience it. It may not be the most pleasant thing. But if you have a focus on your purpose and your reason for being in this world, it makes all that stuff a lot easier to manage. To talk a little bit about like some of the offerings, you can find our courses on tccutraining.com, or if you just Google Take Courage Coaching, our website will pop up, takecouragecoaching.com. So those two websites are different. One is our coaching program, so takecouragecoaching.com is if you're interested in learning more about our coaching, and tccutraining.com if you're interested in becoming a certified pain management coach or a board certified health and wellness coach. We offer courses for both of those. We also do group training or group coaching training. If you want to, learn to coach people in groups, which is a really powerful thing. I think there's power in numbers, and we see just amazing results with people who are in a group with others that are also going through chronic pain. And we also offer a course in motivational interviewing, which is this kind of a coaching technique we use for that really involves unconditional positive regard for the individual. And so if you're interested in just becoming a coach or refreshing some of your coaching skills, those are some courses that we offer.
Paul, this has been incredible. I'm just overjoyed that we get to share this with our community, and just thank you so much for being here with us for this hour.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a real honor to be here, and it's been fun having this conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.